So I went book shopping in Dublin. And this is what I bought. So basically, for context, if you haven't seen any videos on my channel recently, I have just been solo traveling. I went on my first ever solo travel by myself, obviously solo travel, but my husband was away on a work trip, and I've never had the, like, I don't know, the audacity or the boldness to go and solo travel by myself. And so I decided to take it easy and go for a relatively familiar place. Not somewhere I've been to before, but somewhere that was familiar enough that I spoke the language, and I kind of planned out what I was doing. I was staying relatively central, I wasn't doing too much. And so I settled on Edinburgh, where I do actually have some friends, and Dublin, where I don't know anyone. And Edinburgh was taken up with a lot of time seeing friends, obviously, and catching up with people that I haven't seen in the longest time. But Dublin, I decided, was second-hand book shopping time. Also, just as a slight interlude, don't mind the fact that I have very wet hair. I just washed it. I've been trying to find a time to film this for the longest time since I got back, and I just haven't really had the time between work and Luke being here, and I really don't want to disturb him if I'm just going on and on about books. But he's at the gym at the moment, so I decided it is finally time, and I thought I would take you through all of the places that I went to. Okay, so the first place that I went to was Chapters bookstore. I have to be honest, this was the most beautiful secondhand bookstore I've ever been to. I think it's because it's Ireland's largest independent bookstore, as well as a secondhand bookstore. So when you go through the entrance, you're instantly in the area where they've got all of the brand new books, and they've got everything from crime and modern fiction and the classics and, I don't know, like YA, book talk, like everything. And then you make your way to the back, and it is one of the largest secondhand bookstores I've been to that has had such good quality books. And I think that's something that I'm a little bit hesitant with when buying secondhand books, is I really like quality. Like, I'm not somebody that cares about bending the spine. I'm somebody who bends spines when I read. I'm not somebody who likes to keep it pristine, but I am somebody who likes to not have like scribbles all over, or like the bent front cover, or there were some people who like self-laminate with the stuff that you buy for school books and everything, and then it just, yeah. It's not my kind of thing. I'm slightly picky on my secondhand books in that sense. And so it was just absolutely beautiful at the back. But I didn't have too long there because I went at the end of the day. It was my first day in Dublin, and I was feeling a little bit out of sorts. I don't know if you've seen that vlog or anything, but I think I'd just gone from Edinburgh, and I did it baby steps, where I went to a place where I knew people and then went to a place where I didn't know anybody, and I just felt a bit lonely, and I didn't really know what to do with myself and everything, and I wanted to have an early night, but I wanted to go to this bookstore, and it was absolutely beautiful. So I spent maybe half an hour there, and then I actually had to call Luke because he was at a work trip and we were trying to figure out time differences. So I didn't actually buy that much there, but I did pick up 2 books. The funny thing is, if you did see my previous vlog, I had intended to buy 1 secondhand book, and that was my limit. And I found so many good secondhand books that I just decided buying an extra bag on a Ryanair flight, which was 20 euros, was actually going to be more worthwhile to me than the amount of secondhand books that I managed to find at such cheap prices. And these are books that I've been looking for the longest time, and so I thought that it was quite worth it doing it. So I ended up buying the second bag, and so I'd intended to buy 1, and already in the first store I bought 2. The first one that I got is Assassin's Apprentice. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for literally the longest time. I think I went through a phase where I wasn't really reading books. I kind of got out of the swing of things during my honours and masters years at university in New Zealand, because I was reading so much for my studies that I really struggled to read outside of it. And when I got over that really big slump, this was one of the first books that I saw in a bookshop. And unfortunately it wasn't really beautiful cover, and I'd actually gone into that bookshop to buy a specific book, so I didn't end up buying this book. But when I saw it in Chapters bookstore, and like, look how beautiful this cover is. Like, it's not one of those old annoying covers that has people on the cover, or like old style. I'll actually put up an image here of what I mean so you know what I mean. But this is just an absolutely beautiful edition, and I am so glad that I managed to get it. I did actually pay €7 for it, which is not what I was intending. I was planning on trying to find books that were only under €5, but for the quality of it, I'm really not mad. And then the second book that I got at Chapters bookstore was a Brandon Sanderson book, which is Steelheart. I'm currently in the Mistborn series. I think halfway through the second book, and I was planning on buying actually the first one, but I've made a wish list for Luke because for Christmas he's making me an advent calendar with books. So each day I open up another book, and he asked me to make a spreadsheet of like 100 books so that he can go through and pick some from there. And I'd put the Mistborn series on that. And so when I saw this in the bookstore, I thought, why not? It was also $7.99, so a bit higher than I was expecting, but for the quality of it, I am really not mad. Brandon Sanderson is one of the authors that really got me back into fantasy. I would have to say that fantasy is one of my favorite genres, but it can be done so badly, and I think I read too many bad fantasy books that it kind of made me lose my faith in fantasy for a while. And I definitely went through like a mystery thriller slash romance phase, and I'm definitely still going down that route, as you'll see with some of the books that I got. But I just have to credit Brandon Sanderson with how incredible his books are, and I'm really excited to read this. Those were the two books that I bought from the first bookshop I went to. The second bookshop I went to was, sorry, I actually just have to bring this up because I do not remember the names of anything. So the second bookshop that I went to was Oxfam Books. It was a really small hole-in-the-wall kind of thing, and I couldn't actually film that much because there were so many people in there. But the room was literally like a singular room, and the walls were just lined with books, and that was it. So I kind of felt bad filming because everybody would have seen me. I went through and picked out a few books as I was there. Like, they had the first two books from Jojo Moyes' Me Before You, and I'm so on the fence with that book because I don't love how it ends, the first book at least, that I've been so hit and miss on whether I actually want to continue reading the series or not. But I ended up seeing a series that I've never heard of before, but I was really captivated by it. And I'm such a bad book buyer because I'm somebody who likes to plan the books that I want to buy before I go and buy them, just because I don't want to have like 1-star books on my bookshelf at home. I know you can always resell them or gift them to a secondhand bookstore, like I totally understand that, but I want to make investments into books and make sure that I really like them. And so I don't normally buy series that I've never heard of before, but I was really intrigued by this series, and that is the Chronicles of the One series. I bought the first two books. They unfortunately didn't have the final one in the trilogy, but I thought I'd at least start with the first two, and I could always go and find the second one afterwards. These were actually super cheap. These were both €4 each, and so I was stoked with that find. They are absolutely beautiful covers. I am shocked at the quality. It's just like, I don't know, it's like nobody's read this, so I was really surprised that it was €4, but I am not complaining. It is a beautiful addition to my bookshelf, and from what I understand, the plot of it is that it's after a deadly pandemic has gone through, which I don't normally read pandemic books after COVID. I'm not somebody who's traumatized by COVID in that sense, where like I know some people can't watch shows or books about it, but I do just feel like it's a bit much, and it was also very overdone in literature. And like, I know a lot of people like to escape with literature, but one of the things that happen is that it's caused mutations in humanity, and so people are starting to get powers. And I thought that side of it was really interesting, is that it's not really focusing on the pandemic, it's focusing on like the afterwards of it and the powers, and it's a lot more like sci-fi fantasy. And so I got this, plus it has a Stephen King review on the back, which is like pretty high ranking. I think it's pretty good, and so I'm really excited to read those. I got the first 2 books, and if I like it, I'll buy the third, and if I don't like it, I might buy the third anyway, just so I've got the full set, because I like having the full set. And that is all that I got from that store. The next store that I went to was The Last Bookshop. And unfortunately, I didn't actually buy anything there. It was one of those stores which was super crowded, super packed, not of people, of books. And you kind of had to crawl behind and like move stacks of books to get behind it. And I don't know if it was because it was the end of the day or because I was overwhelmed by the amount of books there. I just wasn't really in the mood. I'm not somebody who likes to sift through stuff, and like, I don't know, obviously you can find hidden gems there, and there were a few books that looked interesting, but I definitely like to walk through organized shelves and actually have a look at the books rather than just see chaos. I know everyone's different, but for me, I don't like shopping on the best of days. And then when it's book shopping, I just like being able to see the covers. I like being able to pick it up without feeling like I'm going to knock over a whole shelf. And while it was a beautiful bookstore, I just didn't find anything that really captured me, and so I didn't actually buy anything from there. And then the last bookstore that I went to in Dublin, which was the last bookstore I planned to go to, was the Secret Bookshop and Record Store. I would 100% recommend this place. It was incredible. It was, I don't know, it kind of felt like you were sneaking into an alleyway or something and you had no idea what was going to be at the back. But they had the most incredible books. Some of them are legitimately brand new books for like €4. And then they've of course got their secondhand books, which are a bit more used. And then they have a whole record section at the back. I don't have a record player, so I didn't get anything from there. But I was incredibly surprised to find the rest of the Isaac Asimov series. If you saw my very few book talk or booktube videos from last year, I ended up buying A Date with a Book in England last time I was there, and I was so stoked with it. I'd been wanting to do this challenge for ages, and in Germany obviously you can only buy German books, and my German reading is not great, and so while I would love to do that at some point, I'm still working through the German books that I do have. And so I waited till we went to England, I got my date with a book, and I ended up getting the first book in the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, which I've been wanting to read for a really long time because my dad is super into Isaac Asimov and he speaks really highly of it. And obviously there's the whole I, Robot series, but I hadn't read any of the Foundation series. And so I'd actually just finished that book before I went to Dublin, and I ended up finding the rest of the series in absolutely pristine condition. I am absolutely convinced that nobody has opened these books. It's the exact same print format as the series that I have, which I think is the, I don't know, Harper Voyager series, paperback edition 2016. HarperCollins publishers. And so it's really nice having the exact same print. I definitely like to do that with my series, is making sure they're all the same. But they are in pristine condition and they were €4 each, which is just like unbelievable. Books in New Zealand are ridiculously expensive. I think they're averaging on about $30. In Europe, at least in Stuttgart, where I used to buy my like brand new books, they were averaging about €7 to €10, so cheaper than New Zealand. But getting a brand new book that is unopened, unread, the whole thing for €4 each, I just could not say no. So I bought all of those books, and that was my plan, was to leave it there. I wasn't intending to go see any more bookstores, but but I did do a day trip to Galway and the Cliffs of Moher. And when I got into Galway, our tour guide was incredible, and he went through and said like some restaurants that you might want to go eat at, some museums that he would recommend, and then he said right at the end, I don't know if anyone else caught it because I didn't see anyone from my bus there, but he did say that there was a secondhand bookstore in the area, and my attention was just like, oh my gosh, of course I have to go there. And let me just say, I think it is one of the best bookstores I have ever been to. It was beautiful, it was pristine, everything was organized beautifully, but they also had like artwork and other things around the area to make it feel like you were actually entering into the book world, if that makes sense. And I just absolutely loved when I went into the young adult slash kids section. They had this signpost like you get when you're traveling to places like Finland or all of those other places that have like arrows and signs pointing to New York this way and I don't know, London this direction, but they had this for books, and so they had like Hunger Games references and Harry Potter references and Narnia references, and it was just like, honestly, I could have stayed in that bookshop for ages, and I could have bought everything in that bookshop. They had the whole Harry Potter series, which I am still looking for an edition of, that they had that all secondhand. They had pretty much everything, and it was kind of the same as the Chapters bookstore where they had some brand new and some secondhand. The one problem that I had was that their secondhand books were intermingled with the brand new books, and so you kind of had to check each book to see if it was part of the secondhand or not, which is totally fine. I totally get that some people like to shop that way. I just find it a little bit more time consuming because you get really excited that there's a book there, and then because I'm specifically looking for secondhand books, I go through and it's like some of the series is secondhand and some of it isn't. Anyway, I ended up picking up a series again, as well as one standalone book. The standalone book that I got was Good Girl Bad Blood, which is a series that I am trying to collect. This is one of my top rated series of the year. I was shocked at how into this book I was, and I actually listened to it as an audiobook, so I'm wanting to go back and collect the series and read it on paperback as well to see if, I don't know, if you take it in a different way. The audiobook was absolutely incredible, and the people that they got to voice it was just like next level. I could not have asked for a better audiobook, and it really got me into the world. And so this is actually the second book in the series, and I just thought I might as well buy it. It was €4. €4! I am shocked at this, and so I thought, since I'm collecting it, they only really have a few covers at the moment. I do know that there is an American version and a British version. I do have to say I really like the American version better than the British version in terms of the audiobook, but I've decided to actually just collect them in whatever I could find, and I'm so stoked. I'm so excited to read this again. And this is also a series that's on my wish list for Christmas from Luke, and so I thought I might as well just get one. He can always take it and add it to the list, so it's one less thing he has to buy, but it does mean that I've got one of the 3 books. And then finally, which was such a surprise to me, I read these books when I was in high school, year 11, so I would have been like 15 or 16 years old, and we had to study The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. And this was, I think, one of the best books that I read in high school. It was so deep without feeling deep when you were reading it, but when you analyzed it and you realized like just the many layers within this book, I fell in love with it. And I remember for years after that trying to find them in a bookstore so I could buy them. And in New Zealand, for some reason, every bookstore that I went to was always sold out, or they didn't have the whole series, and I just never ended up buying it for some reason. But when I went into this bookstore, they had all three books, and I ended up actually at the counter. The lady was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that we had all 3. And I told her about how I've just been looking for them for the longest time and I just never found them in a bookstore before. And she was like, yeah, I always try and keep it stocked because people just love the series and they've never able to find it sometimes, and so she tries to keep it in as much as possible. and I just happened to be there when they had all three. They were €4 each, and so I'm just again blown away at how cheap these books were. Obviously the spine is bent, but like I said before, I do not care. I'm going to break the spine anyway when I read it. It's more just the condition of the front of the book, and the fact that I was able to get all three in the exact same printing edition is just incredible. So I'm absolutely stoked, and I cannot wait to finally read the second two in the series. I actually reread the first book as an audiobook back in New Zealand during COVID when I was working for a fire alarm company actually, and I used to listen to it in my lunch break. But I just didn't really get into the audiobook version. Some books work as audiobooks and some of them don't, and I think that the language of this book is really hard to just become involved in when you're not able to just sit there and become part of it. And obviously audiobooks I always listen to when I'm doing dishes, or like I said, when I was at my job, and it was hard to just like actually focus on it. And so I've decided to go with the print edition, and I'm so stoked to say that I finally own it. Anyway, this is every book that I bought when I was in Ireland, and I'm just blown away. I think Ireland is hands down my favorite country for secondhand book shopping. They just have everything, and I don't know if it was just the time that I was there or if I just had really good luck, but I had an incredible experience, and I would 100% recommend these shops if you are going anywhere near Dublin and you want to last minute buy a second bag so that you can bring books back to wherever you live. But I am so stoked with these reads, and I cannot wait to dig my teeth into them. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you're enjoying my like mini booktube videos that I've been doing. It's something that I've been wanting to reach out to for the longest time, especially because of how big academia is to my channel and everything that I'm focusing on. And so obviously this is a big side to academia. Some would say I feel like it's, I don't know, just reading and the intellectual side of it, but also sometimes just the basic books that just make you feel good. So I'm stoked to finally be actively participating in booktube, and I hope you liked this video. Make sure to subscribe if you did and you want to see more book recommendations or reading vlogs, because I have some coming out soon. And I will see you with another video very soon. Caught behind Venetian blinds, had to reach for the city lights. This ain't